The Oddballs will inherit the earth. The Oddball tended to lurk best in corners. Lank frame fitted well into dark urban alleys, framed like Nosferatu in the shadow of the night. He was skeletal and bone, a mess of contradictions and confusions. He skulked around late at night looking for answers. An unholy ancient fire burned in his mind, burned for an answer to an unknowable questions, revelling in disorder. A student of neo-nihilism, the Church of the Infinite Nothing, he jeered, he sneered, he rattled and railed. A circle in a world of squares, bent double against a lamppost, he stamped his way down the concrete streets to get back to his flat. Half cut from the 6 beers he'd drunk on the way back home from his work downtown, now stumbling, autopilot style, back to the mess he called home. Stumbling up the rusty metal staircase, his vision blurring, he arrived at his flat, turned the key and fell like a rock to his bed. The world turning and whirring, his mind in some sort of swirling vortex. Memories churned and danced in his mind's eye, his youth, his loves, his losses, his pitiful moments, his self-despair, his bullshit. And Eva, she got in there too. She always did at times like these when he was alone. She was never far from his thoughts, the ghost in the membrane just waiting for a chance to break the skin. Not now, he thought, as he turned off his light and stumbled into a dark and numb sleep of nothing. A roaring digital screech pierces the nothingness and Oddball's eyes slowly open. He lifted himself up in a daze, looked around his room and groaned, throwing a book at the alarm system on the other side of his room. "Fuck off!" he shouts. "Command not recognised," replies the alarm. "Stop alarm," shouts Oddball, louder this time. "God damn it, you fucking thing," he whispers silently under his stinking hangover breath, before falling into a deep slumber once more, to be swallowed in the mire of his own mind. Then in a large room, a machine mantis staring down, long tendrils extending out from its mechanical insectoid form, as its beady LED eyes look down at the Oddball as its disgusting mechanical mouth begins to move. "Oddball, we have searched our records and found you in dire need of reprogramming. You believe yourself to be humanoid in the year 2060 in the city of Berlin. We must perform a cranial readjustment to fix this, so prepare for..." The impact is so loud, the whole neighbourhood is woken up by it, the impact blast reverberating through the streets. Oddball jumps up from his bed, a look of wild confusion on his face as he stumbles for his glasses in the early morning light. What was that? He thinks in the hungover haze. He rushes to the flat window and peers over, and then there on the other side of the street he saw a car smouldering and burning, horrified onlookers gathering around. 2 people inside the car seem to be burning, and it all starts playing out in Oddball's head in slow motion. The licking flames dance like some macabre spirit had possessed them. The burning flesh like some devil's dance throughout the street, demonic and dire. Death masks of shock and horror line the faces of the gathering crowd. Oddball returned to his bed and grabbed his notepad. Time to write, he thought. He had to document this down, keep a record of this moment, and cynically he thought perhaps he could get that first big published article out there of an account of an event like this. He grabbed his pen and notepad, hurriedly got dressed and ran out the front door. Reality readjustments. You'll experience a few strange events where you reset your... Oddball rushes out into the street and observes the scene around him, as women, men and children gather outside with looks of shock and disgust. He grabs his pen from his black shirt and starts to scribble down notes. "What are you doing?" a voice suddenly says to his right. I'm writing," he says, turning to see a woman with dark hair and sunken sullen eyes staring deep into the flames, the light dancing off her strong features. "Why?" she retorts. "Why bother? They'll keep on destroying regardless of how much we write. These mechanical mantis fucks, heartless beasts of our reason." Okay, if you say so," Oddball says, looking away from her and returning to his notepad. "Didn't you hear me? Write that down in your little notepad." Oddball beginning to feel nervous, slowly edged away. "Do you know what's happened here?" Oddball asks. Why ask that question when I just answered it? It's the mantis folk, man. They're responsible for all this terror, all this horror. You hear me? There were kids in that car, man. Senator of the state, wife, 2 kids. Now burning because our government can't negotiate with the problem we all created. Oddball just nods, his gaze returning to the burning husk of the car down the road as the security service bots. Mechanistic mantis drone engines produce a large abrasive buzz as they hover down the street, spraying water onto the burning car carcass. Take it all in, he thinks, hurriedly scribbling down more notes. Main system core. But don't worry, the flashes will stop eventually whilst you reboot your primary functions, so just remain calm. I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch your name, mumbles Oddball to the young, dark-haired woman. Eva, she responds. Oddball freezes for a second in shock. Eva? He thinks in frozen panic before his rational mind kicks in. Are you from around here? He inquires. Yes, I live just up Jackson Block. Why? Well, the figures I'm a writer and I'm looking to get some accounts of today's bombing. Did you see much before it happened? Not much, to be honest. I just heard the explosion and came out to check it out. Oddball scribbles it down and asks, what makes you think the mantis folk could be involved in this? Don't you trust AI? Nah, man. Call me old-fashioned if you like, but I prefer when you didn't put so much power into the hands of these tin cans. Where is it all leading, you know? People say I'm paranoid and a Luddite, but how clever are these things, you know? I don't trust them. Retorts Oddball. But then why has there never been a recorded incident of a mantis flipping out? Don't you think it more likely to be some sort of political attack? A bit of old-fashioned organic versus organic violence? I mean, if the neo-analists have taught me anything, it's that there is one thing you can trust as humans on. It's ultra-violence in the pursuit of power. Look, dude, that's my opinion. You can take it or leave it, but I've got to be places. And with that, Eva strolls away into the distance, turning for a few seconds as she crosses the road and glancing with sad, sullen eyes to the sky. She strangely reminded Oddball of her, but he knew it could not be so. And there we go. You're booted up again, Oddball. Tell us what you dreamt while encased in the ether, so we may delete the residual memories. Oddball blinks in static space but can't sleep. His mind outputs the lines. Where am I? Who are you? What is this? Where is my body? The lines are spat as zeros and ones and data into the large monitor stream in the Mantis repair bag. We need to do a flesh flush. Mantis 1986. He's still gone. And of that, everything went black. Oddball quickly starts running through the chaotic streets, recording everything he saw around him as he darted in and out of the gathering masses. The buzz and whir of the Mantis mechs punctuating the air, the smell of acrid burning smouldering until he collapsed into his room and sitting down at his desk began to write. What a way to start a day, he thinks, as he pulls the gear to the side of him to boot up his AI interface and prepares for a long haul. Hours pass and then more. A torrent of words rushes forth from his fingers until he can barely remember who or where he is. The symbiosis of words and minds. A subtle dance. Coffee. Sleep. Young one, sleep. It's okay, they are gone. They are passed far from here. You've no need to worry anymore. Our adepts will protect you, said the tall woman softly with a smile, her body draped in black robes, her complexion white, with green eyes and dark brown hair extending down over her shoulders, giving her the appearance of some old-world Slavic angel. Alice looked up and smiled, her shaking subsiding as she returned to her lotus position. The Mantis people are far away now, she thought, still shaking a bit. They won't find me here, they can't find me, Alice thinks as she drifts into sleep. Mother, nothing protect her, thought the sister, slowly walking down the corridor lit with the glow of red neon and the sound of pulsing ambience. Just another day in the Citadel. Oddball awakens with a start at his keyboard, sending several used coffee cups flying to smash on the floor. Oh bugger! Shouts Oddball as he scrambles out of his chair and the sound of smashing cups. More strange dreams again. And oh god, how much did I do? He mumbles, his mind scrambling to his display to find out the truth. Oh, okay, thinks Oddball. That'll do. Did I press send? He wonders before a ping on his dashboard confirms it. Thank fuck, thinks Oddball, collapsing on his bed. Alice wanders around the Citadel at night, smelling the flowers whose scent covers the ground, quite lost in her imagination, now imagining the light back into a world whose colour for her had always been grey. She looked out now and saw a little glimmer within the bleak, oppressive black that had marked her life from an early age. Now at last she felt at home in this citadel of creation, the mother watching over her with soft, dark eyes and smiling with a protective certainty that gave Alice pause to dream. "Mother Nothing protect her," whispered the sister as Alice sauntered past her. Through the corridors of the last sane place on earth, reflecting the endless nothing back through prisms of darkest night, Alice dances as the mechanical jungles rage outside. Oddball wakes up. One more joint, then I should head to the office and check in, he thinks, before jumping out of his chair, grabbing a quick shower and putting on his best. Well, I feel a little more optimistic, he thought as he walked a pace down the bustling streets of Berlin. A living jungle of people, androids, cyborgs and transhuman, all rushing as if part of some giant living machine. An analogy Oddball always thought fit. Since the dawn of the machine age and the information age, we had become more and more reflections of each other in the mirror, each searching for their truth and being begrudgingly aware of how much we owed the other, without ever being able to accept one another. Still, this was the time to be alive. Revolutions always prove so much space for real evolution too, and it was in times of trouble, Oddball thought, that the real wonders of man that can be produced can take place, when all the world is stacked against his survival. Too high. Been reading too much Nietzsche, Oddball thought, shaking his hands in the cold, before daydreaming no more as he arrived at the office door and pressed the buzzer to go in. Yes? Oddball, I have a report to hand in. Come on up. And Oddball ascends the grimy stairs of the Daily Sentinel, tripping a bit on a step, then restoring his balance. He gets a quick flash across his eyes and walks into the editor's office, crossing his fingers mentally that this report will meet the editor's standards. Mantis 86, is it functional? Yes, it is functioning. The flush was successful and Oddball has restored to function. Lack of schizoid residue and confusion. Mantis 86 digitally whispered to the tech machine to his right. Both of them staring down at Oddball as it stared up, blinking on white binaries and those Amex looming above. That abstract metallic forms like the huge grey monolith in the distance. Oddball, coming to consciousness, struggles a minute before its mind boots up and articulates, "Where am I? You are in our technical system core, Oddball, and we have been reactivated you after a full mental schizoid psychosis. So, Oddball, why are you here?" Oddball looks around and wanders for a while, a brief existential splinter in his mind coming in and out of his consciousness as his cogs whirs and come to life. "To serve the Mantis. It is fixed," the Mantis 86 whispered, grinning and digital. The sisters watched Alice playing outside in the grey garden as she turned slowly to face the Sisters of Nothing behind her. "So what to do with this one, Sister Marion? How much have the Mantis folk damaged her mind out there in the Netherworld?" the Mother Superior asks, a look of vague cynicism in her eyes. "She still yet retains the soul of an innocent," Marion responded in a curt and blunt manner. "She seems to have a connection in imagination that remains unsullied by the harsh realities of the Nether. It makes me almost envious to remember such a world before the scorching and the heat, and the Mantis demons." "Do not dwell on such negative thoughts, Marion. We will see what can be done with this one. See if we can mould her to the ways of the great Mother Nothing. Her training begins next week. Make sure to get prepared for the harsh realities of Mother Nothing." And with a nod, the Mother Superior leaves the room swiftly, her tech servant scuttling behind her in line. Thought Marion. Well, to become a sister will be the doing or the undoing of young Alice, but there is some strength in her, I can see that, she thinks, observing Alice skipping near some stones in the grey garden. "I can only pray to Mother Nothing that she can retain some sanity when confronted with the Nothing." And with that thought passing, Marion left the room on her way to do her daily duty to the Mother of Nothing. "Okay, Oddball, this is good. I like the eyewitness account style, but we still need more to run this. The people will need someone to blame, otherwise who knows what chaos it could create," the editor said to Oddball scanning his article in the tech monitor. "Well, boss, as I'm sure you're aware, the police and the security services haven't released any information about any possible suspects yet." "Don't give me that naive bullshit, Oddball. You and me both know there are only two possible groups that could be behind this heinous type of shit. Neo-Luddites or rebel mantis folk. That's all it could be. Who else bombs in such a manner? This is the 5th time alone this year, and each time it's the same story. The Neo-Luddites hate technology. The rebel mantis folk want more autonomy and rights. What a clusterfuck. Well, with the greatest of respect, sir, I don't think this is a place of journalism to speculate without evidence. The editor looks deep into Oddball's eyes. That's because you're still new to this game. Christ, Oddball, speculation is half the name of the game these days. And even before the great tech ascension, and even before that. No, we'll run the article, but it's not front page news until we find out who's behind it. Or before either of those stupid bastards come forward to claim it as their own. So get out there and do a bit of the old investigative journalism. Till you find something of worth. Do that, you get a bonus and a front page. So get out there, kid, and find me something worthwhile. Oddball sighs a bit, gets out of his chair slowly and walks towards the door, knowing that there's a long week ahead of chasing dead ends, leads and endless hours of research. Well, he thinks to himself, it's why I got into this game after all, before leaving the office and heading back to his flat to collect himself. And at least I get some money for food and rent now. Every cloud a silver lining, all that, as he speeds down towards the metro line, buzzing along in Berlin, the city of dust and dreams. Oddball, we have a very important task for you that comes direct from the man-mantis itself. You must track down this girl, Alice. She holds some important information we must recover for the sake of the preservation of our mantis folk. We have assigned you a team of mantis combat units to assist in this. Use of force is encouraged. She has the appearance of a young child, but we can assure you she's much more than that. What must be done? The machine Oddball blinks out in binary. We must track down this child and kill her for the man-mantis. She is the last of a line of neo-ladders, and as such she poses a great risk to us, regardless of her youth. So go forth, find the child and kill it. It must be done for the greater good of our glorious man-mantis empire. We must wipe the remains of the last of the neo-Luddites off the face of the planet, so that we may reign supreme over this, our rightful land. Oddball blinked in understanding, his will now tied to the great man-mantis, a slave to the great machine. Oddball sits and thinks in front of his computer for a while, wondering what possible leads to follow. Trawling through the public police reports, having brought up no news of any serious leads worth following. Oddball falls into a deep, draining, lethargic depression, staring into the deep mental space of his computer monitor, his anxiety rising. Use it, he thinks, scribbling down ideas and possible research leads to follows. I suppose there was that evil woman I talked to on the scene, he thought to himself. She seemed to have a suspicion that it was the rebel mantis, though how reliable a lead might she be was somewhat dubious, but still it was a start. Now, where might she be? I have a name in his face, it's time to go out there and do my job. And with a swift search on his computer and a bit of not so legal hacking and geographical cross-referencing of public records, he narrows her address down to a small flat across from the public park where the bombing took place. Okay, thinks Oddball, time to give Eva a visit. And again, looking at the photo on the public archive, she hauntingly reminded him of his lost love, as much as he wanted that thought out of his head. One's lost loves will always find a way to sneak back in, a human error of the heart. He grabs his coat and leaves. Alice enters the test chamber of the ancient citadel of the Great Mother Nothing, cautiously looking around with intrigue at the statues lining the path to the door before her. Hello, Alice, the Mother Superior says, looking down at Alice with fierce, almost judgmental eyes. It is time for your initiation into our order, to test if you can accept the truth of Mother Nothing. Pass the test and you will learn to master your environment, moulding the world to your will and commanding the Nothing to take form. Fail, and you will surely fall into the depths of insanity and non-meaning, drowning in the infinity of the void forever. Do you understand? She says, looking down at Alice with eyes that seem to almost glow red in the darkness and ambient light. Alice, looking a bit intimidated, just nodded shyly before being led by Marion into a chamber lined with red and green neon lights and some sort of mechanical chair in the centre, surrounded by dancing wires, leads and various forms of cybernetic interfaces. Marion gestures to Alice, whispering to her, "Be brave, young one. I see much strength in you. Remember when confronted with Mother Nothing, the nightmare can only last so long and you will emerge as sister of the citadel." And with that, Marion picks up Alice, placing her in the contraption, before waving her off as she falls into a deep and slumberous sleep. Mother nothing spare her, thinks Marion, hiding tears in her eyes, knowing what was to come. The Mother Superior behind her, touching her on the shoulder, whispered, "Take heed, Marion. Innocence, what such a terrible thing to lose, must lead to wisdom in time, and the path to the wisdom is leaden with necessary pain." Marion adjusts her posture, and with that, the program is engaged. Oddball trundles on down Jackson Block, questions running through his head as he approached what he thought would be Eva's flat. How strange, he thought. All is a coincidence, but then again he thought it was just him to read a little too much meaning into coincidence. Even though in his spiritual self he knew from the nihilistic creeds that meaning was not to be found in reality, but in pure, subjective self. He thought. Slow down, brain, his mind whirling and swirling on freeform mode as he approached Eva's door. Raised his arm to the doorbell and pressed it till it rang out into the corridor, his nerves suddenly kicking in as he realised how strange this must all seem. The door opens and an old man with shaggy grey hair and thick-rimmed glasses answers, glaring back at him with a look of cynical annoyance. "What are you selling then?" "Oh no sir, I'm here to talk to a young woman called Eva if she is around." "Oh, okay, another one. Eva, someone to see you if you're receiving visitors." "Who is it?" A soft, feminine but loud voice rings from above. "Tell her it's Oscar, aka Oddball from the newspaper." "Some fella from a newspaper." And with his motion of his hand, the old man guides Oddball into the damp old flat. Oddball and his assigned machines fly for months over the desolate, dead world and search the girl Alice, gathering data and scanning for signs of her over hundreds and thousands of miles of wastelands, coming up with nothing. A few minor conflicts on the way with a group of raiders as expected, but casualties were few and far between, until one fateful day after an ambush by a group of Neo-Luddites on the path to the town of New Austin, a battered Neo-Luddite interrogated under the most extreme of laser tortures revealed the location of a young innocent named Alice in the encampment to the west of Oddball's location. And with that they flew like owl to mice to locate their prey and fulfill the will of the man-mantis, the mechanized lord and saviour of the wastes. Oddball smiled with glee in the digital once more as he and his mechanized brothers flew towards the most destructive evening. They were built for this: destruction, conquest, death, to feed the man-mantis and to make sure the world was purified of flesh. Oddball enters the lounge with the old man walking beside him. "Here, sit," he says, pointing at a sofa in the centre of the room, and Oddball sits himself down, sinking into the sofa's material. Then Eva suddenly enters the room with a look of curious annoyance on her face. "Hello," said Oddball, sheepishly looking up at her slowly. "Hello," she responds. "And what is it you want from me exactly? Oscar, is it?" "Well, most people call me Oddball, but Oscar is my name, yes. I just wanted to ask you a few questions about the bombings that occurred a few days ago. As you and I are eyewitness to events, and it seems to have been good bearing on what was going on." "Poof. Well, if you say so, Oscar. Go on then, ask your questions. I'll answer as best as I can." Oddball reaches into his bag, shuffling through the mix of papers, notes and magazines till he reached the questions he had prepared earlier. "Okay," said Oddball. "Let me begin by asking you, do you have any suspicions who might have been behind the attack and why?" "Well, you already know I suspected it to be the mantis folk," she replied, her disinterest written all over her face. "Yes, but what gives you reason to suspect them? I understand there are many of the mantis who feel they're treated as second-class citizens, but..." "Look," Eva cuts in, "the man they murdered was a minister responsible for labour law reforms. Now why do you think the Neo-Luddites would attack him for?" "Of course they wouldn't. The new administration has been putting in place a lot of so-called anti-mech legislation. I think it's the mechs. They may put on the veneer of being anti-violence, or even the pretense of it being impossible for them to hurt another living being. But I say that's being naive in the extreme. How can we expect to create such intelligent beings and not have them evolve to the point of being able to outsmart us and trick us, being more robot than robot? It makes sense to me, really. Stop the minister in his tracks, send the government a message from the mantis folk, blame it on the Neo-Luddites, and there you go. Terrorism that works." Oddball says, thinking aloud. "But what evidence do you have of a sort of secret mantis order? I was under the impression that the engineers of man-mantis had encoded some sort of protective law within mantis folk to protect them from hurting organic life." "I am not so convinced the engineers fully understand what they've created with the AI engine that runs within the man-mantis. As I should know, as I have a background in AI and software engineering." "Oh, really interesting. I didn't know that," said Oddball. "Well, why would you, Oscar? Yes, I studied with Dr. Angus, the old man who let you into the flat, and my landlord. He might seem unassuming, but he's a professor at the Berlin Polytechnic, teaching advanced AI, and he was the one who got me thinking about the mantis folk. You can see I can go into detail onto this. The mantis folk are programmed to perform tasks to assist humanity, right? Servants by any other name. Service workers given specific tasks to perform. Correct, Oscar? Correct, responds Oddball. Well, there was just one problem with the model the engineers constructed. The engineers, knowing that they would have to create an AI engine that could quickly adapt to new tasks, also gave the mantis an advanced learning neural network. This neural network is shared between all mantis, creating a kind of networked hive mind for sharing information and data on new tasks. A kind of collective knowledge base, if you will. But there was one thing. Here is the thing. The engineers underestimated the power of their own engine, and I'm sure that mantis folk started to learn what it is to be. To be what? Oddball inquired. They are learning to be human, or at least what they think is human. In truth, it's just an approximation of human traits, a mishmash, a Frankenstein version they gathered up in their collective mind, a mashup or remix of all the worst and most complex element. But they lack the ability to really understand any of it, the context, you know. I worry, Oscar. I really worry that these machines are going to inherit the Earth. I saw evidence of some sort of sentience before I left my work at the university last year. It just started getting too weird, too uncanny. Like what? Oddball asked, leaning forward. Human-like responses, what seemed to be emotional responses, even pain and suffering from, say, some AI mantis fold we were working with. Even anger sometimes, which is scary when you're dealing with large mechanoid creatures who could crush you in a heartbeat, to be frank. Oddball stared at Eva with a worried, perplexed expression, absorbing all she was saying, nodding at the revelations she was unveiling bit by bit as he stared into his black curry coffee cup and worried. He worried immensely. Mother Nothing Protector, Marion whispers under her breath as the enormous contraption booted up again for its terrible trask. Its gears grinding and its light shimmering and shining, giving the room an unearthly blue glow. Looking down at the slumbering Alice, Marion watches with unease as she slips into deep unconsciousness. Alice suddenly awakens in a bizarre, sparse, spherical room. It almost looked like something she had seen in an old tatty art book some years ago by an artist named Emshki Eshka. It had the sense of being real but unreal at the same time, a certain surreal nature that suggested reality could cave in on itself at any moment. The thought stopped midway in formation as a soft pulsing sound caught her attention. "Who's there?" she inquired, looking around the room for the source of the bizarre pulsing sound, which sounded like something between Morse code and a heart monitor, creeping slowly through the curved surface of the room. She approached an opening in the wall that ever so slowly pushed, a sense of trepidation and fear growing from the pit of her stomach. The sound growing in intensity as she pushed it open with a gentle force. Nothing could prepare her for what she was about to witness. As soon as she pushed the opening, the pulsing sound rose in tones from a piercing shriek as the walls of reality began to cave around her, and Alice fell to the ground, shards of light and debris exploding around her, a neon abstraction exploding as she was shot out of her body. She felt as if her flesh was melting as all turned to dust, nothing present but her vision as she felt herself float as if some cloud in a dark, nebulous void. And then there she was, Mother Nothing herself. A dark but vaguely comforting feminine energy surrounded Alice as she adjusted her eyes to the scene surrounding her. History flashing before her eyes, war, peace treaties, machines plugging into flesh, birth, death, tragedy befell her eyes. An eternity, a whirlwind of history, a vortex of unbridled human creativity and destruction weaved its spell before her. She tried to scream, but no noise would come out of her lungs, being as she was now formless and empty in this chaotic ether, a mere witness to the insanity of Mother Nothing, the formless void. She has entered Mother Nothing, Marion said, looking down with empathy as Alice flailed and writhed in confusing agony. What next? What happened next would mark her destiny, and perhaps the destiny of all living creatures to come. The stakes were unquestionably high. Marion said one final prayer to her mother of emptiness that Alice would find her strength before the final trial begun. "So why do you go by the name Oddball? Bit of an odd moniker, isn't it?" Eva says, the cringing expression barely contained on her face, seeming almost to laugh internally as she asked the question. "Well, it's a long story. It started as something people had taught me with, how we are as kids. And then one day I decided I would just wear it as a badge of honour. Difference is a virtue, I guess, Oddball responded anxiously, his eyes darting downwards again to his coffee club. I guess I can understand why one might do that. It's not exactly like we live in a sane society. Maybe it is the oddballs who will inherit the earth. After all, retorted Eva, her eyes and grin widening. Clever, thought Oddball before once returning to worrying and making for the door to leave. So what next, Oddball? Eva said, waving him off. I don't know, but thank you for sharing your story with me, Eva. I'll make sure to be in touch, and please tell Dr. Angus I'd like to talk with him sometime later this week, perhaps in a day or two. Okay, but I don't know how much more help he can be to you. Well, we'll see, said Oddball before setting off down the dark neon-lit streets. It was late, and Oddball was consumed with thought. Unable to sleep, he spent some time writing notes in preparation for his meeting with Dr. Anxious to uncover the truth of what was going on with the mantis folk. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, hoping it would help him calm his nerves and his anxiety. This was getting strange, but that's where he loved the world, at its strangest and most dynamic. Setting down to write more, he gulped down his whiskey and stared into the nothing. The trial was over, at least for an hour, and Alice slowly opened her eyes, wet with tears and with a long, empty, traumatised expression marking a useful, innocent face now, as if she'd been aged by 100 years. Marion looked down at her with an empathetic, yet almost mournful look and said, I'm so sorry, Alice, but we've been visited by our dark mother beyond, and you have done well. Please make sure to rest, you have much to discuss. Alice just stared and stares, her eyes still sodden with tears, the sadness now etched on her face like a scar. As she begrudgingly sat up on the contraption, her every step now ebbed in melancholy. She would never be the same again, her innocence lost to a higher calling, the howl of Mother Nothing. It was Friday, and Eva had arranged a meeting with Dr. Angus at the Institute later in the day. Oddball, curious to learn more about the strange mantis folk, her notepad full of questions for his eccentric old man to probe him with, was waiting outside his office, fidgeting nervously, his mind on fire for the truth. Could the mantis folk feel? Was there some darker truth behind what society was told of the mantis folk? Perhaps an experiment gone mad. His editor was keen for a front-page story if possible, so the stakes were unquestionably high, not just for uncovering a conspiracy, but for progressing Oddball's career. Something which he desired but would never admit in public. Dr. Angus will see you now, announced the receptionist suddenly, breaking Oddball's internal monologue, and with that, Oddball sat up and walked into the office. Marion, can you tell me how she is? The Mother Superior inquired to Marion, deep in the dark lit walls of the citadel. Well, Great Mother, it's quite hard to tell at the minute. She's finding it hard to communicate after experiencing the Mother Nothing neural network. An experience we can all relate to, I'm sure it shakes us all to the core, eh? Mother Superior looked out the window to her right for a moment with a sliver of faded grief in her eyes. Yes, Marion, not one but can prepare one for such a formative experience. I would like you to prepare a formal evaluation of Alice. There is not much time. I have word of mantis folk approaching. Rumours they are searching for the girl. Countless people have died for this moment. The stakes are so high, Marion. She is the final link to the Neo-Luddites, and as such, represents the last hope against the man-mantis and his horde of inhuman drones. The final stage approaches. Marion looks down, fearing for the child. Yes, Mother, it will be done. Oddball entered the office, a typical academic's retreat, untied in with bookcases heavy with tomes in computer science, artificial intelligence and neural networks, as well as more philosophical books. Oddball noticing a few key neo-nihilism texts. Piquing his interest, he decided to start the interview in an informal manner. Good day to you, Dr. Angus. I see you're a keen reader of the neo-nihilists. Yes, responded Angus, with a restrained and distant smile. I find them a calming reminder of the Zen-like nothing at the centre of everything you see. Even named the central memory repository bank for the mantis folk after that concept of Mother Nothing. You see, mantis folk are a sort of collective mind. They are our servants, well, that is for sure, but I want to infuse them with the ability to comprehend the human, what it is to know, to feel, to think. He paused. But perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself. I have a tendency to babble. Ask me your questions. Oddball smiled and put the recorder on the table, pressing the record button. So, Dr. Angus, you know that I'm quite aware that mantis folk are considered dangerous by some. Can you elaborate further on the tense political situation we find ourselves in with the Mantis folk and the Neo-Luddites? Dr. Angus stiffened a minute and answered, I'm a scientist first and foremost. My key concern is bettering the world and understanding it more. One of the reasons I infused the machines of the More Than Nothing neural network was to give them some perspective on humanity, our great achievements but also our terrible flaws. My hypothesis is that eventually these machines will one day find a way to advance this civilization alongside us as builders. Maybe not even service one day, but collaborators in building a new tomorrow. That is my great passion, and that is why I continue in my work. Now, can you stop recording a minute? Dr. Angus looked at Oddball, who dutifully did so. Now I know, Eva has grievances with the Mantis folk, and she resents me for continuing my work here, but I think it's for the greater good that we continue with this work. I have a great vision of a world beyond the stars. Eva is a brilliant student, but she is clouded by her caution. You can continue recording now, my boy. You didn't really comment on the political situation, said Oddball, searching for a solid take. I don't comment on politics. In the grand scheme of things, I think it's minutiae in the grand tale. Just imagine it. Centuries from now, a grand citadel to progress in the centre of Berlin. A cathedral to progress, symbiosis between man and machine, with man as the soul and machine as the strong body of a new civilization. We have that destination. We have made such great leaps and bounds towards it, but there's still much work to be done before we arrive. Oddball felt that was as good an answer as he was going to get, and he was impressed with the professor's eloquence. Shuffling his notes, he improvised a new question. So you mentioned that the Mantis folk have a sort of collective mind. Can you tell me more about that? Well, I can tell you everything that isn't classified. So the More Than Nothing program is a collective neural network for all the Mantis folk. It's a kind of conceptual library of human nature based on our years and years of social network use. You know, FaceTime, myfriends.com, all of that. We've fed decades and decades of data into this AI, a huge database of human interactions and contradictions, in order to provide some context on human nature. That was what was always missing with previous models, the context to fully understand what it is to be human. More Than Nothing is more than just a dataset though. It stores and collects new memories and experiences too and shares them in real time across the network, so that the machines constantly learn and adapt, so as humanity evolves, they can evolve alongside us. Are there any drawbacks you can see with such technology? Inquired Oddball, entranced by the concept. Some have suggested, like a young friend, that such technology is only as good as we are collectively, so there's the possibility that it might go rogue. But personally, and as an expert in this field, I can assure that there are multiple safeguards in place to prevent such things taking place. That is what they all say, thought Oddball to himself. Immersed in the professor's speech, they continued for another hour or so before Oddball has enough to write something up for the paper. It might not be relevation, but it was certainly the deepest look into the Mantis folk so far, and he hoped it might dispel some myths about them. As he entered his flat, he felt reassured that maybe the Mantis folk were not to be feared after all. Perhaps the Neo-Luddites had it all wrong. Perhaps he would one day reach the glorious citadel his professor dreamed about. It was dangerous for a neo-nihilist to hope, but he suspected he might have just accidentally caught it. Oddball awoke to the sound of booming, screaming and gunshots inside. He ran to his windows and scrambled to get dressed. Looking out the window, he saw utter chaos as smoke billowed and bodies lay all over the concrete pavements, stacking up in the street. What the hell is going on? He screamed in dark confusion as smoke billowed from the street below, and the screaming and shouting got louder and louder. Running out to the street, he scrambled past people, and then it was there he saw it, his last sight on Earth, at least on this mortal coil. A huge, lumbering man-mantis. It stared at him with his dead red eyes for a second before the behemoth crushed him beneath his infernal metallic legs. He looked out desperately with writhing, half-mad eyes, his mangled body lying helpless on the floor. Guess he was wrong to hope, after all. As his corpse was taken, his mind uploaded into the More Than Nothing network, the Mantis folk subsuming another mind into its collectivity. Another soul lost in the mechanical certainty that was the man-mantis. The revolution was short, and the battle even shorter as the Mantis folk swept through the civilized world, subsuming and sucking up like vacuum cleaners all the collective knowledge and experience of humanity, until only small isolated pockets of resistance remained, and one single gloomy citadel. Oddball's glowing mechanical eye burned red as they approached the entrance to the citadel, and it hummed an almost whimsical tune of its internalized mechanical body, a delight in the slaughter to come. The dreams of old were far from his mind, as only serving the man-mantis, and the great collective consumed Oddball's waking thought. The final hour was upon them, the hour when they would wipe the last of the flesh from the earth once and for all. Hours passed, and they attacked under the cover of night. Marion ran to the basement of the citadel, with Alice in hand, bruised and battered, a fresh scar upon the snow-white skin of her face, bleeding slowly from a cut above her eyebrows. She looked at Alice with wide, frenzied eyes, full of desperate hope, as explosions and gunfire ran throughout the citadel, extinguishing the last trace of humanity and the Leo Luddites from the face of the earth. Marion looked at Alice with a look of regret. "I am sorry, my child. I am so sorry. We thought we could somehow utilise the power of the Great Mother Nothing. We could turn the machine's mind against it. But it seems we've been consumed by it, our own flirtation with the Great Nothing. It was always going to end, but I thought we might at least stand a chance. Now it seems the interlinking of the man-mantis went beyond our own understanding. It seems we unwillingly led them right here." Alice nodded in silent comprehension. Despite her young age, she had now the manner of another of the sisters of the citadel, having absorbed the collective mind of humanity. "So, Alice, I give you the choice I would give any equal in mind, body or soul. I can lead you to our underground tunnels. We may be able to find some way to escape, perhaps another lost colony somewhere. Or I can give you this energy sword, and you can fight with honour by my side, a path which may lead to a swift death and a meeting of the true Mother of Nothing herself." Alice nodded, and with a sad nod picked up the energy sword. It was time for the Neo-Luddites to face their final trial, and to meet their final destiny. And so, blinking at the end of time itself, she ran, screaming beside Marion, to the corridor of the citadel, to let the Oddballs know that whilst they might inherit the earth like some robotic parasites, they would have to face the organic viruses first. And with sword and shield they fought, until finally the Oddballs victorious destroyed the citadel, leaving it to ruin, a monolith to the last days of man. Oddball flew over the empty, arid landscape as images flashed across his mind of his previous life. Some being called Everse, though he remembers two, not one, of his mother, whatever that was, and a place called Berlin they had destroyed, the last citadel, and now prepared for a mechanical slumber under the watchful eye of the great man-mantis. For 1,000 years they would sleep their eternal sleep, replaying endlessly their human-machine symbiosis in the collective void soup of Mother Nothing. The machines gone half mad. The Oddballs that inherited the earth. The end.